Peter, very good to see you. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're talking through how to navigate the financial talk with aging parents. And so we're going to discuss when you need to have this talk with your parents and then the topics that need to be included. But why, Peter, is having this conversation with your parents so important?
Well, because ultimately it's going to be your issue.
Yeah.
Wealthy families have this discussion early, often, and on an ongoing and evolving basis.
Hmm.
So, we're specifically talking about having this discussion with aging parents because oftentimes parents are a little close to the vest with their finances and tend not to divulge much information. And I really feel like this is a mistake. I think that you should be talking about money and finance as early as possible, and to continue that conversation and the level of that conversation, the involvement, the complexity on an ongoing basis. So whether you are the older generation talking to your children or grandchildren about money, you should be asking, how do you feel about your money? Why do you feel confident or scared about your finances? And if you're the younger generation talking to your parents about it, again, whether you are the older or younger generation, or as we see today, the sandwich generation caught
Hmm.
between both parents and children, like ultimately family issues, financial issues, they are your issues. They are going to
Hmm.
come back eventually on you in some form or fashion. So have these conversations so that everybody is prepared, and sharing knowledge is going to empower everybody to make better
Hmm.
decisions.
Why do you think then that we avoid this topic? And do you have any advice to get the ball rolling?
Because it's a difficult topic. It's
It
it's
is,
it's
yeah.
sensitive. It's personal. Sometimes there's feelings of embarrassment over certain things at certain times, and also there's what I call diaper syndrome. That if you've ever changed anyone's diaper, you don't really want to hear their opinion about money. So it is a sensitive issue, and having that conversation and divulging specific dollar figures, like even with family that you love, sometimes you question motivations, and then not everybody is fully on board in loving and trusting in-laws and spouses of family members, nor even their family members directly, right? And we could be talking to one sibling or one parent that we have full faith and trust in, but the other set may be in a completely different situation. And so what information then gets shared outside of that direct conversation that we're uncomfortable with, it is a very difficult and sensitive subject. But again,
Mhm.
the more open that we can be about it, and look, you don't have to divulge exact dollar figures or amounts to have important conversations, to have impactful conversations. You could be having the same conversation about $10 million as you have about $10,000.
Mhm.
It's more, hey, let's ignore the value of the dollars we're talking about. Let's talk about the values that want to be established or
Right.
transferred generationally. And then
Mhm.
what's important about those dollars to us more than how many of them there are.
Mhm. When your parents have a meeting with their financial advisor, do you suggest the child be present in the room?
Yeah, I mean, maybe not for every single one, but that certainly should be part of the conversation and relationship. I mean, look, at Richon Planning, we try to bring family members into the conversation because, again, going back to the first issue here, it is going to be your issue. At some point in time, whatever your beliefs are, wherever you think you go after here, up, down, sideways, the money stays here, or the lack of money problems pass to whoever's still here. So I do think that there should be conversations between generations, and specifically with the financial advisor as part of that conversation, to talk over pros and cons and what was addressed, what hasn't been addressed, what's too late to address, or what we need to be planning to address into the future. A lot of times that conversation with what is essentially like a mediator in some cases, and this could even be between spouses, is very important to make sure that important issues are conveyed, and that everybody is sort of at least on the same page about where we are and where we want
Mm.
to be.
hmm Okay, so let's say now that we are having this conversation with our parents, you suggest including a few specific topics, starting with their current financial status and income.
Yeah. The foundation here, right? How do you feel about your money? Why do you feel that way? Are you worried you may be leaving a burden behind or unprepared for specific things in the future? Or do you feel like you've got that all squared away and I don't need to worry about it at all? Look, it was a conversation between me and my father decades ago. He said, just to let you know, I plan to bounce my last check. And I said, that's all well and good. Just make sure that it's the last check you need to write.
Right.
And that was kind of the basis of a funny conversation. But in with all joking aside there, it's not everybody's goal to leave behind a great amount of wealth. And that's not a selfish notion, in my opinion, at all, but don't be a burden at the same time. And the truth of the matter is that if we do have a plan for our own well-being and self-sufficiency, then more likely than not, there is going to be some wealth left behind. So just have those conversations and try to emphasize that you've got certain specific issues that need to be addressed that oftentimes are left unaddressed. And I think we're going to get into just a couple more of those.
hmm The next, probably, of course, making sure that they have a plan for their health care and long-term care. And Peter, we were talking offline about the incredible cost of
Yeah.
long-term care. This is in your neighborhood, projected out 20 years, an annual, expense of anywhere from 149 to $214,000 a year. That's incredible.
And I actually think that's kind of low because
Yeah, me
I see
too.
prices at those levels today.
hmm
And healthcare costs are rising more rapidly than almost any other category of expenses. So we've all seen inflation over the last 5 years, but healthcare expenses, and specifically like long-term care expenses, living in an active adult community, all the way to assisted or skilled or nursing care, all of those carry with them a hefty price tag. And we've got to understand what that expense may be because Social Security does not cover all of it, not by any stretch. Medicare is not intended to cover those kind of healthcare expenses. And Medicaid has a whole host of issues all of its own. Either we've got to spend down money till we are completely broke and impoverished, or the government gets to set our quality and standard of care and life. And so we've really got to work through these issues and figure out how are we going to pay for it. If we're married, how is the other spouse going to continue to live a quality of life if it is us, unfortunately, that has these kind of healthcare expenses? And again, we've got to project out for some large dollar figures here
hmm
because the cost for just routine care over the course of retirement for the average healthy 65-year-old couple is several hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then when you add in the possibility of like assisted living or nursing care or even an in-home aid, you're adding several hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially per year onto those regular expenses.
hmm And then last, we want to talk about their estate plan. And I feel like, Peter, if they had had an estate plan set up, they would have at least started the conversation about long-term care and healthcare too.
I would hope so. Although not everyone has. I mean,
Yeah.
there are people who have in place wills and medical directives and powers of attorney and healthcare powers of attorney. There are even people who have trusts dictating what's exactly going to happen to their money when they're no longer here that don't have that long-term care insurance component
Mm,
in place. And Erin, I mean, I can't fault them because there is no great solution to this question. It is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. There are ways to address it. There are some people that just write it off and say whatever happens happens. There are some people who have done so well that they could reasonably say they're self-insured, and there's a whole spectrum in between. And even for those who could say they're self-insured, oftentimes there's good ways to leverage dollars to protect the money that's giving you that confidence. But no matter where you're at on that spectrum, you need to have addressed the estate planning. who's going to take care of things the day after you're gone, and where's your money, your house, your possessions, your investments going to go in the time that follows? What value and values are going to get transferred on generationally? What is the order of operations there? And what are the critical decisions? Yes, there are after death decisions that are mapped out in an estate plan, but as uplifting as this comment may seem, death is not the worst of all possible outcomes. So if you are unable to make decisions on your own behalf, that's also part of the estate plan. And dictating who gets to make what decisions, or what decisions you've already thought out in advance, is part of that as well. And then for a certain strata of kind of wealth and investor, tax implications could be a big part of that estate plan as well. And pre-planning that is going to just make it that much more efficient and effective from a tax standpoint, so that the IRS doesn't become your largest beneficiary. I don't think anybody wants that.
Of course. Peter, I'm glad we got to talk this through, because I think it helps underscore not only the importance of having this conversation, but it also doesn't have to happen all at once, which makes it a little bit intimidating, right? And then we put it off. So if somebody would like your help just to get that conversation started, how can they reach you?
Give me a call, 919-300-5886, 919-300-5886. We've got actually a list of questions to kind of pose around the holiday table, or any at family gatherings, that are very non-pressure, non-invasive, that can help to get the conversation started.
Perfect. All right, Peter, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Erin. And start the conversation young, by the way. If I could get more high schoolers having these kind of conversations, or even elementary school, that conversation is going to continue and benefit all generations of the family.
Yeah, good point. All right. Thanks again, Peter.
All right, thanks. Hey everyone, Peter Richon here. Hope you enjoy the content. As always, make sure that you like, subscribe, share the videos with others that may find this information helpful. And as always, you're welcome to be in touch or to submit questions or comments. You can comment below the video anything that you'd like to see or hear shared on our YouTube channel and in future videos. If you got a topic that you've been thinking about or is of concern for you financially, be sure to let us know. We'd love to help you by discussing it on the channel. So appreciate the continued views and the likes and the subscribes, the shares, the comments, always helpful. We look forward to getting you the information that you need.